themselves into hot water again after they did the very thing they purport to be against, undermining women's success. Joy Behar stunned viewers when she said Donald Trump's press secretary, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt, only secured her position because of her good looks.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
The comment was bizarre, especially coming from Joy Behar, who is as woke as they come and positions herself as a champion of feminism. This online commentator said, disgusting Joy Behar of The View accuses Karoline Leavitt of being hired only because Donald Trump thought she was a 10.
The grand ballroom of the Washington Liberty Hotel was alive with anticipation. Tonight was the annual American Honor Gala, an event dedicated to celebrating veterans, first responders, and those who had committed their lives to serving their country. The room was packed with high-profile guests, politicians, military officials, celebrities, and journalists, all waiting for the night's main event. But at the center of it all stood two women from entirely different worlds, Karoline Leavitt and Caitlin Clark. Karoline was a rising force in politics, known for her unapologetic stance on patriotism and national values. Despite her young age, she had already carved a reputation as a fearless figure in Washington, admired by many, despised by others who considered her too bold for her own good.
Now to the cackling witch herself, Joy Behar from The View, whose jealousy is something to behold.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be... Here is Joy objectifying the White House press secretary, saying she only has the job because...
Caitlin, on the other hand, was a basketball icon, one of the most celebrated athletes of her generation. She had transcended sports, becoming a role model for millions. Her talent was undeniable, but what truly set her apart was her ability to inspire, to stand for something greater than just the game. The two had never expected to cross paths in such a public setting, yet tonight they were both being honored for their contributions to American culture and leadership. Karoline's recognition stemmed from her advocacy for veterans and her unwavering defense of national identity. Caitlin's came from her continuous efforts to support military families and honor fallen heroes through her platform. As the event began, the lights dimmed, and the national anthem filled the grand ballroom. The audience rose to their feet in unison, some placing their hands over their hearts, others standing in silent reverence. Seated in the front row, Karoline placed a hand over a folded American flag resting in her lap. It had been given to her family when her grandfather, a World War II veteran, passed away. To her, this flag wasn't just fabric. It was a symbol of sacrifice, a tangible reminder of everything her family had fought to preserve. On stage, Caitlin stood tall among the other honorees, wearing a warm-up jacket embroidered with the words, "Honor the Fallen," a simple but profound tribute to those who had laid down their lives in service. She had worn similar messages at charity games before, but tonight, the weight of those words felt heavier. As soon as the anthem ended, a hush fell over the crowd. And then, the tension shifted. A well-known media personality, seated at the VIP table, suddenly stood. His voice rang out, carrying through the ballroom, ensuring that every journalist, every politician, every camera caught his words. Karoline, Caitlin, some say these symbols represent a past that divides us rather than unites us. In today's world, isn't it time we move forward instead of clinging to outdated ideas of patriotism? The words sliced through the room like a blade. Some guests nodded in agreement. Others exchanged uneasy glances. A few journalists smirked, already sensing a headline. Caitlin turned her head slightly toward Karoline. Their eyes did them.
Oh, please. His opponents are saying to this very day the same rhetoric that led to those two attempts. The second attempted on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie. And yes, you will take political, like we have seen in two instances against President Trump. Last week, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was a That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016, because people don't trust the media.
In a now viral scorched earth video,
Eyes met for just a fraction of a second, but that was all they needed. They both knew exactly what was happening. This wasn't a question. It was a trap. And now they had a choice to make. The room held its breath, waiting for their response. Karoline slowly stood, still clutching the folded flag. Her expression was composed, but her eyes burned with a quiet intensity. She looked directly at the journalist, her voice steady and unwavering. This flag was given to my grandfather's family as a final honor for his service. It is not outdated. It is not a political statement. It is a reminder of sacrifice, of duty, of the price that was paid so that we could all be here tonight, freely speaking our minds. A murmur rippled through the audience. Some nodded in agreement. Others remained silent. The journalist smirked, unfazed. That's one way to look at it, he said. But don't you think that in today's world, patriotism should be more about inclusivity rather than holding on to outdated symbols? Some might say that clinging to things like that flag does more harm than good. Karoline didn't flinch. She tightened her grip on the flag and took a step forward. Patriotism isn't exclusionary, she said.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because Black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not Black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world.
This commentator said, Whoopi is mansplaining the press secretary job to Karoline Leavitt. Hilarious.
It's not a relic. It's the very thing that allows us to have this conversation. And if honoring those who have given their lives for this country is considered harmful, then maybe the real issue isn't the symbol, but how we've been taught to see it. The tension in the room thickened. The journalist turned his gaze to Caitlin, clearly expecting her to distance herself from the controversy. You're an athlete, Caitlin. Your career depends on sponsorships, endorsements, public support. Do you really want to get caught up in something so polarizing? Caitlin had a choice. She could play it safe. Say something neutral. Avoid making waves. Instead, she took a step closer to Karoline. I play basketball because I love the game, she said, her voice measured but firm. But I also love this country, and I love the people who have given me the opportunity to play. That's what this jacket represents. If that's controversial, then maybe we need to ask why. A hush fell over the crowd. The journalist folded his arms. So you're saying you don't care about how others might interpret these symbols? That their pain doesn't matter? Caitlin let out a slow breath. What I'm saying, she replied carefully, is that honoring the sacrifices of those who came before us doesn't erase the struggles we still need to face today. We can do both. We can remember where we came from and still work toward a better future. Those things aren't opposites. They're connected. For a moment, silence. Then, from the front row, a slow, deliberate clap. An elderly veteran, one of the evening's honorees, had risen to his feet. His posture remained straight despite the years that had weighed on him. He looked at Karoline, then Caitlin, and finally the journalist. I fought for this country, he said, his voice strong but measured. I lost friends for it. And I will tell you this. When I see young people like them standing up for what they believe in, I don't see division. I see hope. The room shifted. People who had been hesitant now joined in the applause. One by one, more guests rose from their seats. Not everyone clapped. Some remained seated, whispering among themselves. A few reporters frantically typed, preparing their spin. But it didn't matter.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Karoline and Caitlin had done something one expected. They hadn't backed down. And now the entire country was about to watch what happened next. Within minutes, clips from the event flooded the internet. News outlets scrambled to cover the moment, but each told a different version of the story. Some portrayed them as brave figures standing up for their beliefs. Others framed them as